I want to talk about, because we'll definitely get into the room for sure, but I want to talk about your new movie, Miracle Valley. It's inspired by a true story about a cult hidden within the Arizona desert. About an obsessive photographer, which I believe you are playing, Greg. I don't know if you want to give a little bit more, as much detail as you can about this.
Yeah, so I've always been really fascinated by cults. You read about like Jonestown and you think, how could anybody ever get involved in something so insane and be willing to die for it? And so I really, I've always been intrigued by that. So I went out, and studied cults. I moved to the middle of nowhere in Arizona and stumbled upon this real life cult that took place in the 70s and 80s, in which this preacher believed he could bring people back from the dead, and this varied on rare blood types. And so I thought, what an interesting kind of direction to go in. There's all kinds of human trafficking, but what about a story that traffics people for their blood type? And so I'm living in this house. It was up on a hill house on a ranch looking over the valley. And I just started writing the screenplay. And I thought, I'm going to write the screenplay here. I'm going to base it on this area. And then we're just going to go ahead and film the whole thing right here. So it was a really kind of a cool experience because you could write the scenes out how you picture them in your mind. And, I just studied, Manson. I studied what is it, Nexium. There's just culture so fascinating. And personally for me, I remember years ago, I had a friend who thought like the world was going to end. Basically,
Like a Y2K?
basically what we're going through like right now in a way of all these things that are happening. And they wanted to move to Ecuador. They're like, we need to get out of here before everything like goes haywire. And they were totally normal people. But the more they spoke to me, the more they showed me stuff, I thought, damn, am I the crazy one that like wants to continue in this world? Like I was so confused. And so what I realized, there's just steps in getting people to believe. And so that's what was really fascinating about this story is the way humans react to rules, to needs. And it was just, I combined my love for horror films, The Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I thought, let's go out and make a crazy horror film. And where I was living in Arizona, there was this huge community that's big into bird watching, which I had no idea was a thing. Like people go out and watch birds, but
Oh yeah, they're called birders.
birders, yeah. People come from all over the world to this little town. They pack their lunches and they go scout for this really rare bird called the gray hawk. In the movie, it's called the silver hawk because it's a little sexier. But and so I tied that in, and my love for again, like Hitchcock movie Psycho, and I tied in sort of all these elements of trying to go out and make something totally new. Because I know when people that have seen The Room and seen The Disaster Artist, you can't just give them any old movie because they've seen the most insane stuff. So you got to keep surprising them with new material. But I tried to, cults are a really fascinating thing, and it was fun to work on this during the pandemic.
So you observed a real cult that truly believed that certain blood types were better than others?
Yeah, that you could actually continue, like you could de-age, if that's a word, and you could heal, you could become stronger. Like they really believed all this stuff. And so I think a lot of the movies discovering how much of that is your mind telling you something and making you believe something, and how much of that is actually physical. But the more I looked into it, the more is that's it's very legit that this has gone on.
That's interesting. And I wondered, did the idea or the concept of adrenochrome or like ingesting blood come up for any of this?
No, it was really just sort of the research I had done, from this past preacher who was also friends with Anton LaVey, I guess, which I didn't know. But we actually found like rare recordings of him doing sermons, like straight off tapes from like the 50s and 60s. And it's really powerful listening to this dude talk. I don't know what he's saying. I don't know how much of it is like makes any sense, but just the passion in his voice, how much he believed in this was something that was really, really intense. But yeah, no, it's a thing where I guess, very few people have this certain blood type, and it can be really valuable, I guess, to healing people or, so.
That's really interesting. No, I really want to see this when it comes out, because this is so weird to like, I have to bring this up because it's like, it's so on point here. So my father's father, so my grandfather, was actually part of the Mooney cult. I don't know if that is one of the cults that you
I did study that.
included.
I had a friend who got wrapped up in that.
Who, boy, yeah, it's just the more you hear about it, the more you're like, I can't believe somebody got wrapped up in this. But like my dad, well, he always tells stories about his dad. Like, first of all, he like divorced my dad's mom at a time where like people were not really getting divorced, and then participated in like a huge mass wedding, like married some, I think, random Korean lady. I never met the guy. I never met my grandfather or like, you know, anybody kind of, or his wife or the new wife. I mean, I obviously met my grandmother, but he, you know, he would tell me all the time, like he would give so much of the family's money away to this cult, like so much so that he couldn't send my dad to Boy Scouts. They always were eating like the cheapest cut of meat for dinner, like a lot. He has a lot of feelings about it, and I think that is why it turned my dad against like all religions, period. Like, even growing up, we were raised Methodist, and he would just like sit with his arms folded, you know, like he was against us, even though it was, you know, just church and egg hunts and like Halloween, you know, costume parades and like kind of light stuff, you know, because it's Protestants. They're just kind of pretty chill. But yeah, it really turned him off religion as a whole.
It does. It starts with just a simple, innocent, you know, gesture or moment or connection. And, you know, you might be having a tough time in your life. Somebody might lift you up. You have a good conversation. And then it starts from there, and you just don't know how far it can go. But people really get wrapped up, and it becomes their whole life, and they totally lose connection with anything they had before.
Yeah, I have been told that I am somebody who would join a cult. I forget, it was like a friend a couple of years ago. I think
it was a cult. That's what I could picture that.
It was when I was like, I used to be really into astrology. I think maybe that's part of what, you know, I think it's, and you can confirm, like, it's probably a combination of like needing a lot of gratification or validation, kind of gullible. And it's all about like who's selling it, you know, like who is approaching you.
Yeah, all it takes is just one moment where something adds up, or it makes you feel a certain way, and you get a positive reaction, and you want to continue with that. I became, I mean, really, the room movie is very much a cult. You know, like I've traveled the world meeting fans, meeting people, and there's a whole cult around it. Like there's sort of these people, there's something in it that brings them together and that they connect with. And you know, anytime you're collecting things or wanting to talk about things or quote things, there's, you know, something there psychologically that's really interesting. But having been at like one of these rare cults of cinema, that's something that always intrigued me from the beginning.